Welcome back, IU fans, to the IU Report here tonight on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Grant Shouse with Mike Hutsell, of course, Greg Mengelt, the producer and the guy who makes the show run. Mike, I'd say you're officially into the off season now in terms of our coverage, primarily focusing on football and basketball. And, we kind of reached that lull. It's going to be a long off season as, get ready for football around Labor Day weekend. But Indiana's been practicing in the spring now, getting their new guys in for football. And we're going to talk that. We're going to talk some basketball portal stuff and kind of recap the basketball season.
It's wild times out here, man. Portal opened at midnight last night, and I think you and I are the only two people who haven't entered the portal since it opened.
Yeah.
I was thinking about transferring over to the Fever Report, but still waiting to see what kind of NIL Greg throws at me for that. So,
but thankfully, it's just not the Purdue Report.
No. Purdue doesn't take transfers. Matt Painter recruits the holiest of holy. He's the exception to every rule. Thank goodness for Matt Painter. And in today's whirlwind world that we live, we'll always have Matt Painter.
Yep, thank the Lord. And it's funny that the portal officially opened at midnight on Tuesday. And it literally opened, like, you can't make this up, as One Shining Moment was playing after the national championship. You cannot make that up.
It's perfect.
Perfect. By the
way,
way,
the guys from the game went into the portal at midnight last night.
I don't know, but imagine you're sitting there celebrating the national championship, and then you look up at the clock and you're like, shit, in 5 minutes I got to get in the portal, dude. It's been fun, but man.
Well, the great thing about every player who declares for the portal, it's all part of God's plan.
Right, and the
every
Lord
post they make, it's God's plan. Indiana has predictably lost a big chunk of the remaining roster to the portal. The 6 seniors, of course, are all gone. And Jason Drake was the first one out the door. Thanks for all the memories, everything you did for us. And that
I'm real disappointed about that. Seriously, he was a fan favorite. And the fact that he's not going to be back next year, I mean, I wish him the best of luck, but just really disheartening.
It's good that he showed up, took the money, got to rehab, got really good seats for D1 games, and now he's on his way out the door. But following him out, more recently, Josiah Miles declared he is not coming back. Josh Harris, another guy we didn't see all of last year due to injury, he is gone. The North Florida Osprey connection is no longer in the program with those two guys gone. And then today, Monday, we lost Alexa Ristich, the international freshman guard. Didn't play a lot this year, was injured at the start of the year, came in, was clearly not ready to contribute. Was kind of a guy I was thinking maybe would be nice to hold on to as a developmental piece, but he goes in the portal today. So as of right now, with 6 seniors, 4 guys declaring, there's 10 spots open right now. Sisley is said he is coming back. We don't have an answer yet on the Euro big man who redshirted last year. I would have to expect he might be on his way out as well. And then the 3 incoming freshmen that have signed. So it's going to be another busy portal season. We'll see if the excuse last year seemed to be we got a late start. It's not going to fly this year. Let's see what DeVries can put together.
I agree, and hopefully they'll be able to get their needs. I think the biggest need is got to have a big guy. Have to have a true primary post present. Having an Umar Ballo, Reed Bailey, and Sam Alexis, you can't get guys like that. I mean, I liked Sam Alexis. I thought he really played his role well, but you can't have a short big man in there anymore. He's got to be 6'10", 6'11", back to the basket kind of guy. That's the guy I'd be looking for out of the portal. That I think that's one of your biggest needs as a big guy. Of course, obviously, good, smart guards. Guards win championships, and if you can find good, really good guards in the portal and throw some cash at them, you can get them to come and hopefully make an impact. But you're right. It is going to be a busy portal season, and DeVries and them are going to jump on that hopefully and be able to come out and be ready to go next year and not have as disappointing of a finish to the season this coming year as they did this past year.
Well, you'll like two of the names that have immediately been connected. Of course, nobody really knows anything. The people that know anything probably aren't talking, but some of the names that are coming out early in the portal would fit exactly what you said they need. The first name that everybody is linked to Indiana is Marcus Burton, the guard out of Notre Dame. He's a Mishawaka kid. He was hurt for quite a bit of last year, so it's kind of up in the air if he has 1 or 2 seasons of eligibility. But that seems to be the name most commonly linked to Indiana right now. Houston also allegedly on the radar for him. And the big man that we keep hearing about right now is J.P. Estrella. He's a big body, played for Rick Barnes at Tennessee last year. Has an obvious connection to Rod Clark, who was on Rick Barnes' staff, who's now one of DeVries' top assistants. A lot of people are tying Indiana in with him. Of course, Kansas is getting some mention with him. He'll be a hot commodity, I would think. He's a skilled big guy who can shoot at the foul line. So that's going to be, if they can start a class with those two guys, that would be a really good launch point. You don't know what else is out there. There's dream classes of Flory Badunga, the Kokomo kid who played at Kansas. He's in the portal. A lot of ties with him to right now Louisville, Texas Tech. Not really much mention of Indiana. They're throwing around like a $4 or $5 million figure for him in the portal. Jalen Harrelson out of Notre Dame. Indiana was in his final 2 out of high school. Seems to be some wind blowing towards Columbus for Ohio State for him. Kentucky is trying really hard to get in the race there. So there's a lot of names. You're going to hear 35, 40 names probably daily that has Indiana interest. I just hope DeVries is more prepared. They've got a GM this year.
Yeah.
They've got to put together a better roster because let's be real, out of 12 spots on your roster last year, you had 2 red shirts with the Euros. You had 2 red shirts that were injured. You had an absolute miss in Reed Bailey and pretty much a miss in Josiah Miles and a freshman in Trent Sisley. Out of 12 spots, you had 7 players that really were struggling to contribute by the end of the year. You can't have that. With the resources that Indiana has, the money they have to throw around at NIL, they've got to get 7, 8 guys that they can count on. And at the end of last year, they just didn't have that. And I think it showed. Indiana looked absolutely just completely gassed before it was all said and done at the end of the year. And they just kind of looked like they gave up in the Big Ten tournament because it was over. The finish line, they saw the finish line and it was just over. And that can't happen again.
I 100% agree. You hit on some really great points there of who they're looking at. And I'd love for Marcus Burton to come here to Indiana. He's a guy that really spent the better part of the last 2 years hurt for Notre Dame, but he won Mr. Basketball at Penn High School up in Mishawaka and then went right next door to Notre Dame to play college. And Flory Badunga from Kokomo also won Mr. Basketball. I actually know Flory pretty decently personally, and I think he'd be real interested in coming to Indiana. There was some interest there last year because if you remember, he actually got in the portal last year at Kansas and then decided to take his name out and stay. And this year he's just decided to go full out and get in the portal and go somewhere else. I think, honestly, if he hadn't have gone back to Kansas last year, I think he would have been in Indiana this past year. He was really linked, of course, to Indiana just, from coming over from Africa and then playing high school here and kind of becoming a hot commodity and kind of a legend. His girlfriend actually at the time went to IU. So there was a lot of Indiana. I think there was a lot of IU and Flory Badunga linked together, and people saw that last year. I don't know how confident they feel about it this year, and so hopefully Indiana can muster up the money to get a guy like him. Harrelson would be a nice addition as well. You could be getting the basically an Indiana All-Star team back together, because one guy you forgot to mention, and I think this is a long shot. I don't think this will happen. Trey Singleton, the Jeffersonville guy who was at Northwestern. And I know you said this in our text thread the other day, Mike, but hard to pass up a Northwestern degree, and he gets in the transfer portal, and he's going to be a really nice pickup for maybe another Big Ten team or an ACC team or whoever. He's going to be a really nice pickup for them in the portal. I'm just not so sure it'll be Indiana.
Iowa State getting the most buzz with him right now, oddly enough, in the portal.
I could see that. He seems like a solid Big 12 caliber player. I just don't see him coming to Bloomington, unfortunately.
In a dream world, there's an IU fan out there that is thinking, okay, next year we're going to start Jalen Harrelson, Marcus Burton, Flory Badunga, Trey Singleton, and Michael Cooper, the point guard from Wright State, who also played at Jeff on their state Title 4A team a couple of years ago. And then the bench is just going to be more Indiana kids that transfer in out of the portal. So there's your uncle who shares really weird AI memes on Facebook has probably got that lineup in his head somewhere. I don't think it's realistic. Sad.
That's the thing, Mike, is you just literally described my actual uncle right there. I'm actually being so serious, dude.
We've all got an uncle who probably shared the fake story today that came out that Curt Cignetti and his wife had a baby.
Not true, by the way. Not true.
Speaking of the Cignettis, Grant, it's spring football season, man. Dude. Anything fun coming out of that?
I think it's the same old. Indiana is going to play its spring game on April the 3rd. I believe it will be televised this year on the Big Ten Network. Last year it wasn't, which really pissed me off because I couldn't go. I'm planning on going to it here this year. I think it'll be really fun. It actually, coincidentally enough, is starting at the same time as the NFL draft, and there's a very high chance that, well, I don't know with the Raiders signing Kirk Cousins, but there was a good chance, or there still probably is a good chance, that Fernando Mendoza will be selected number 1 overall in the NFL draft during the spring game.
He is getting taken number 1 overall, Grant. There's
no doubt.
Kirk Cousins is not the reason that they're not going to take Fernando Mendoza. Let's just get that out there right now. He will be taken. Fernando announces today he's not going to Pittsburgh for the draft. Mm-hmm. He's going to watch it with his family. A lot of people say it makes sense with his mom and her condition, and right. Hopefully his aunt, who was at the national title game, is there with them that night, because there's going to be an ESPN cameraman who finds her. But going back
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, just you'll search it after the show and you'll appreciate me. Going back to the spring, Cignetti absolutely burying Sonny Dykes from TCU so far as the highlight of spring. Dykes comes out a couple weeks ago, kind of throws a little bit of shade at Josh Hoover, says, this year it'll be nice. We have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over probably. Even though Hoover was the only reason TCU was in a lot of the games that they had last year. And Cignetti comes out last week and says, it's kind of weird. Josh got here and met his 2 new best friends, a decent running game and a good defense, and all of a sudden he looks like a completely different player. So, and then he gave that little trademark Cignetti wink to the camera to say, hey, Sonny Dykes, go F off, man. You suck. You made the national title game and had the most embarrassing loss in the history of the sport a couple of years ago. We made the title game and won on Miami's home field. So let's just shut up, Sonny Dykes. You suck.
And we won the national title and became the darlings of the sport. I just still unreal. But that is one of the things I kind of want to bring up here, is that you can tell with the program now and the returners, from the national championship team this year that obviously, you're still enjoying it. I think you're probably still a little high from it, but it's one of those things where we're looking at 2026 now, and it's time to move on from that. And while it was great, it's time to really get a move on and start preparing for the season. And I think you can see that obviously in the staff with Cignetti and the coordinators and all the support staff, and probably some players, some returners, Charlie Becker, Tyree Tucker, your line guys that are coming back. I still think that there's a lot of, it was great and everything, and it's still pretty cool, but we're moving on from it. That's, the past was in the past, and if you're going to live in the past about that kind of stuff, then you're never going to be happy in the present. You're never going to be able to live in the moment. Well, again, it is still cool. You got to let those things kind of go, and you can tell that they're really turning the page and just moving on from it. Just, it's over now. With the spring game, I think it is really cool for recruiting. The recruits you're going to have in the building that night is at 8 o'clock when the spring game starts, and the NFL draft is at 8 o'clock. And it's like, hey, how about we stop the game so we can watch the guy who helped us win the national championship and won the school's first ever Heisman Trophy and the poster boy, the golden child of college football. Hey, how about we sit up here and watch him go number one with all of our fans in our stadium in the NFL draft? I don't know if that's what they'll do. I have a feeling that they probably will, and I think that looks really good for recruiting. I think it does a lot for your program, and it shows the kind of culture you build that, hey, come here, and that could be you up there one day.
The only thing I'm hoping for the spring game is they pay the proper homage to Fernando's moment. And also, there's no sing-along with John Mellencamp involved whatsoever.
Oh, please no.
Let's forget that ever happened. And that's the thing we need to move on the most from last year is the Mellencamp karaoke at the national title celebration.
I'm still recovering from it. It was brutal.
How do you think Elijah Surratt feels?
Oh, my God.
He had no clue what song he was allegedly singing up there on stage.
Well, and it's one of those things where the funniest part that came out of all that was like when Sig went on and got on the Big Ten thing. He said, we had all these people that come out here. We got a blizzard coming in. He goes, and I am freaking freezing, dude. That was like the most memorable moment to take out of that. So it was honestly kind of a letdown. I watched it live. I was like, dang.
When you have something in Bloomington, Indiana in January, weather may play a factor.
Especially something outdoors.
Right. They were properly recognized at the Purdue basketball game.
I had a Purdue fan tell me that night, the only reason that Purdue lost was because the national championship trophy was in the building, and there was no way the IU basketball team, who did not play one snap, catch one ball, run one play, have one tackle, there was no way they were going to lose that game because the football team won the national championship.
Well, it's a damn shame that Matt Painter answered Barry Odom's FaceTime before the Elite Eight.
I'm curious, Mike. I know this is the IU report, but in the recent light of the national championship game and everything, what are your thoughts on the former IU manager, Dusty May, who I think a lot of people love the storyline? Oh, he was a manager for Bob Knight. He was manager for Bob Knight. And, the Indiana kid who went to IU and everything. People love that gimmick. I think they kind of love that storyline a little bit, but fact of the matter is, I'm not sure how much really Dusty May actually liked Bob Knight just from hearing him talk about him. But I'm curious your thoughts on the kid from Salisbury, Indiana, where Coach Knight used to do a lot of grouse hunting. The guy from Greene County, Dusty May. Your thoughts on him winning the national championship with Michigan?
Well, I can't sit here and pretend that I'm happy about Michigan winning a national championship in basketball. I am glad to see that the Big Ten completed the trifecta. Greg, I don't know if you heard or not, the Indiana won the football national championship in January. But then, UCLA, of course, winning becoming the first team since 1999 in the conference to win the women's national title on Sunday, and then Michigan breaking that really just bizarre stretch of 26 years without a basketball title in the conference. So there's no doubt who's holding all the metal right now, and that's the conference of as Bill Walton would say, the conference of champions right now is the Big Ten. But Dusty, good for him. At the end of the day, he is an Indiana guy. He does have ties to the program. But man, I didn't realize how traveled Dusty actually was. That guy's coached a little bit of everywhere in his career. It seemed like he just kind of landed at Florida Atlantic, and I hadn't really heard much about him, but he was coached with Mike White at Louisiana Tech. He had worked for John Calipari for a while at Memphis. Cal was kind of credited with giving him his start. I think he did some work out of Fresno or some school out in California. So he's well traveled. He's not a guy that was born on third base in the coaching industry. He's gone from a student manager up to the most coveted college coach in the country. Made some interesting comments when he was tied to the UNC job. Said, I'm not looking at any other college jobs right now. I think this guy's got a Brad Stevens arc. At some point, I think his goal is to get to the league, and more power to him. I would not mind seeing him leave Michigan whatsoever. So if it's not going to be for Indiana, let's get him someplace. Maybe, Greg, that's Rick Carlisle's replacement in about 3 years with the Pacers.
Cool. When's the last time a college basketball coach was successful in the NBA?
Brad Stevens did okay. If you're really, really good and you can relate. I mean, John Beilein, that was a train wreck waiting to happen. That was a 70-something-year-old man going to coach in the NBA. That was never going to work out. But Brad Stevens and Dusty May, I see a lot of similarities there. Not just, I can see it happen. I can see him being successful. He just seems like one of those guys that's going to win regardless of where he goes. Stevens did the Celtics thing for a while. Now he's in the front office. They're the top franchise in the East. I don't really think that's up for debate. And they won the title, 3 years ago? Even with injuries, they're still going to be one of the teams to contend with this year. So if that's the arc Dusty goes on, I could not be upset if he did it with the Pacers.
For me, with Dusty and seeing Michigan win the national championship, there's certainly schools like in the Big Ten that I hate, like obviously Purdue. I hate Ohio State. I'm not a big Illinois fan. Michigan's one of those that I actually don't hate due to the fact that way back in the day, back in the early 80s, my grandpa, of course, when he was a younger man, the one that doesn't like that we use language on this podcast, by the way, he had a major heart surgery back in the day, back in the early 80s. And the only place that could do it was up at the University of Michigan. So obviously we're not Michigan fans, but we like Michigan just because he saved his life. And it's one of those things again, where I didn't hate seeing them win it. Their fans were really cool at the game. By the way, since I was there, it was 80-20 Michigan fans. There were maybe 1,300 UConn fans in the entire building.
It turned into the Peach Bowl. Michigan, it's a short drive down, and it's a journey to get there for UConn. So that's kind of what you thought you would see. I mean, the Illinois fans were there on Saturday, so it just kind of became another Big Ten takeover.
Seeing their fans celebrate and all this, and I told a lot of them. I actually wore. By the way, I wore the IU football national championship shirt because I don't know if you remember, but they won the national championship. I wore it under my sweatshirt, and I was going around to people, hey, enjoy it, take it in. You'll never want this feeling to end. I've been through it. Showed them the shirt. We just went through it not long ago. It's special, and seeing One Shining Moment live on the big screen after the game. Oh my God, just a special thing. And see, as a play-by-play guy and studying the craft, I love Ian Eagle. Absolutely my favorite broadcaster of all time. And of course, I'm at the game, so I'm not watching on TV. So I don't know. I had no idea what his final call was. Well, they always put the final call on One Shining Moment. And I was literally cheering after it was over because I thought he nailed it. Listening to Dusty get on there afterwards and talking about how his mom used to drive him to the coaches' clinics, and he used to just go to all this stuff just to try and make connections and meet all these, college coaches and build relationships. And you're happy for those kind of guys that win championships because they paid their dues in coaching. Like they were at like some low, major school making no money and work their way up to get to where they are. And then you see them succeed. You're happy for those kind of people because they've given everything they have to the game and the game rewards them. Maybe a guy you guys are familiar with, I'm sure Greg is, a guy named Tom Bradley, who just resigned, but he was the coach at Orleans down there in southern Indiana for so long. He's kind of the same example where he coached at Orleans for so many years and never could win a state title and then finally did. I think it's one of those things where you pay your dues and the game will reward you, and that's kind of what happened, I think, with Dusty May.
I know there's a lot of talk about, and Indiana fans obviously have gone through it with the Dusty May saga. All of them feel like it was Mike Woodson's fault that he's not coaching in Bloomington, and Indiana should have the Cignetti-May combo right now. And maybe that's true. Who knows? There's some people that say he never really wanted to go back. He's loyal to Bob Knight and Mike Davis and didn't like what happened there. So there's two sides to the story that are out there. But how do you feel right now if you're Ohio State? Because they had an opening and their two candidates were Dusty May and John Diebler or Jake Diebler, whichever Diebler brother wasn't good at shooting 3-pointers.
Jake.
Okay, so those are your two guys. You choose Jake. Dusty May goes to Michigan. Look at the trajectory of those two programs. How do you feel if you're Louisville? Louisville had the chairs and the press conference set up to announce Dusty May's hiring. And then Dusty starts telling people that he's getting death threats and vitriol from the Louisville fan base. And he started to have second thoughts and went to Michigan instead. And then allegedly
Mike, he literally changed his mind at the 11th hour.
Oh, I know. I mean, I lived through it. I was sitting here. I was listening to all these Louisville fans. We got your guy, man. We're gonna win with your guy. This is gonna suck for you. And then he backs out. And then not only that, he tells Josh Schertz, "Hey, man, I don't think you should even think about taking this job." And they end up with a midget like Pat Kelsey, who looks like a little leprechaun dork running around with his stupid freaking glasses. And they all hate him already. So I love that story. I love that he backed out. I love that there was chairs set up. People were starting to make their way to the Yum Center. Dusty May was the guy, and now he won the title. You talk about people going through it. My Louisville friends this week are going through it, man, because they know he was literally their guy. It was done.
Yeah. And of course, the inside joke in the tournament about how, and I don't know if you were on Twitter enough, but people were talking about like, how like Dusty May and Josh Schertz are just such good friends. They're just such good buddies. So, of course, May's going to tell Schertz, hey, don't touch that Louisville job. Go to St. Louis instead. You brought up a good point about May and Brad Stevens. I think there's a lot of Brad Stevens and Dusty May. Obviously Dusty's a little older than what Brad Stevens was when Butler went to back-to-back national championship games. I think Dusty's 49. Brad Stevens, I think, was early 40s, mid 40s there at Butler. But they've kind of had the same trajectory. Like Brad Stevens, literally before he coached, was a waiter at Applebee's. Like the guy went to DePaul University and then somehow ended up as an assistant coach back at his alma mater at Zionsville, and then somehow ended up at Butler with Thad Matta the first time around, and then just kind of stuck it out and was there with Barry Collier and just worked his way up and got Butler to where they needed to go. And again, he was the kid from Indiana that you could rally behind. He wasn't a great player. He wasn't like your Steve Alford, but He's the guy from Indiana you could rally behind because played high school and then becomes a real successful coach. People love that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of similarities, I think, with Dusty May and Brad Stevens in a way. And I think now the new thing where always the inside joke is when a job comes open in college basketball is you got to make Brad Stevens say no. And I think you'll start to see here soon is you got to make Dusty May say no. Or my favorite tweet was last night after the game, I saw one that said January, February, Izzo, May. So I guess that's how we're rocking now.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Susie.